Welcome to Mom's True Tea, the podcast where moms can spill the true tea on various thought-provoking topics and challenge beliefs about motherhood and life authentically, unapologetically, and without judgment. I'm your host, Kendall Lachey Williams. Let me tell you guys, it is MumsTrueTea 1 year anniversary. 1 year today, I launched MumsTrueTea podcast, and it has been nothing short of amazing. It has been quite a journey, from raw conversations about motherhood to setting boundaries and everything in between. And today I have an amazing guest who's been shaking up conversations on social media along with myself. We're both ruffling feathers from two different perspectives about family dynamics and that parent to adult child relationship and how we're seeing this play out right now. I am going to welcome my amazing guest, Promise Israel, aka Millennial Influencer. Thank you so much for being here, Promise. Welcome to Mom's True Tea.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here sharing the stage with you on your 1 year anniversary. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I first discovered you on TikTok last year, and you really piqued my curiosity and my interest with your take on the adult child to parent dynamic that we're seeing right now. It was just such a different perspective from what I've been seeing from others. And honestly, it had me sitting back like, let me process this real quick, because I was not hearing this type of feedback from anyone from your age group. And it was refreshing, not just because you were saying things that me from a parent is like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, but just to hear your take from a millennial. I was so excited when you agreed to come on. So let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm Promise Israel. And Promise Israel, it means the promised land.
Yeah.
So my mom named me Promise because of the promise that God made to Jacob about Joseph. I just always like to highlight my name because I just think my mom really saved my life with my name.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of times that I really thought about doing some strange things, and then I would say, well, that wouldn't look right for a promise. You know, so I'm just a regular chick from Alabama. You know, I'm real laid back, and I'm a really straightforward person. I've always been like that.
That's good.
I like to say that I'm well respected, probably not liked as much as the human flesh would want to be liked, but I'm respected, and I've always been that way as well. So yeah, I just want God to use me as a vessel to get a message across, because that's really why we're here. So that God can use us. And I'm thankful every day that I didn't stay sick in the head. That's what I like to call it.
Yeah, that's what you said on your TikTok. And I was like, wait a minute, let me rewind this. What is she talking about? Sick in the head.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. There's so much. First of all, let me touch on names are very important. So I'm glad that your mother named you that, and it definitely has some meaning. And then I like what you said about I may not be liked, but I am respected. And for me, that's more important than being liked. And a lot of times, truth tellers are respected, but they're not liked. So you and I are seeing this from two different perspectives. Me from telling the truth from a parent's perspective, but also being open to hear an adult child's perspective as well, but from a respectful place. And I think that's where the line gets crossed. So tell me, it's so much I want to say.
Well, just say it, you know, hey.
What led you to take this approach with your content, to start speaking up on that parent to child relationship, but from speaking from your perspective?
Well, I want to start by saying when I first decided that I wanted to do content, I was still very lost and very sick in the head. So, of course, the beginning stages of my content was very fleshly, very trendy. And I was also, like I said, sick in the head, still, just in a lot of lanes that I should not have been in personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had a voice. My voice has always had influence.
Mm-hmm.
But when I really entered into the dark side of the world, I felt like I was a mute.
Oh,
God would
wow.
not let me speak on his behalf or about him. And I've never really said it out loud. I tell my close friends and stuff, when I was like in homosexuality and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, I was
Mm-hmm.
a mute. When I was angry at my parents, a mute, he would not use me. But
Wow.
I was popular and I still had influence, but you know, it wasn't, I always felt so caged in because I wanted to say one thing,
Yeah.
but I had too much dirt on me.
Oh,
Just to be
okay.
totally honest with you, you get on the internet and start talking, you better have yourself together.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying be perfect, but I'm saying you need to be able to, you need to practice what you preach if you're going
Right.
to get on the internet and say anything.
Yeah.
So I had to really God had to prune me in a lot of areas. And I felt so good when he restored the relationship with my mom first and then later my dad.
Mm.
Because I was just angry, really controlling, well, wanted to be controlling towards my
Right.
parents.
Yeah.
And chip on my shoulder, all the little stuff that your
That we're
kids
seeing
doing,
today.
everybody kids
Mm-hmm.
doing,
Yeah.
and one day I decided that I was it was God. I really
Yeah.
can't pinpoint when it happened. It was kind of like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Yeah.
I would talk about something and then I would feel the courage to talk about something else, but
Mm-hmm.
I could not talk about parenting in a healthy way until I knew that I had fully forgiven my mother, my father, and also asked for forgiveness.
Right.
It's not
Wow.
all about someone saying that they apologize to you. It's just sometimes about you saying you apologize to them.
Wow. We're
So,
gonna we're gonna we're gonna unpack that. We're gonna get to that because
yeah,
yeah, that's something that because let's be real. The parent-child dynamic is changing
man,
tremendously.
it
Okay.
is. It
And not
is.
necessarily for the better. The hierarchy that we grew up with is disappearing. And respect between parents and adult children or even teenage children, child, it's real shaky. It looks real shaky. So let's get into what are your thoughts on the current state of parent and adult child relationships right now?
Man, I think it's terrible. And even just pulling from my personal life, watching my siblings and my mom and my siblings and their dad. We don't have the same dad. Uh, but it's dysfunctional, you
Mm,
know, and just seeing peers and stuff and like you said, seeing content where people are talking against their parents and everybody is saying that everybody wants to have this trauma thing that they
yeah,
talk about.
yeah, I
I
hear
mean,
that.
that has really enabled people
Yeah,
just being
yeah.
able to say I have trauma.
Yeah,
Duh.
we
What are you
all
talking
do.
about?
And like I don't, I never take that lightly, right? So a little bit about me, I grew up in a home where I witnessed domestic violence since the age of 5. I
Wow.
saw my father hit my mother for the first time on my way getting ready to go to school. And that kind of continued. And my mom divorced and married my dad several times because she wanted him to be in my life. She wanted that family unit because she came from brokenness. And she was willing to stay with my dad, good, bad, or indifferent through the abuse and whatever for a short period of time. So I witnessed domestic violence in my home for quite some time. My dad was addicted to drugs. He actually died in 2014 in prison. Um, and my mom, I felt like she was angry too. So she was abusive as well. And then I got into an abusive marriage. And then now I am actually estranged from my younger son because he became very abusive and disrespectful to the point where I could no longer tolerate it. So and I wanted to give you that backstory because I'm like, that's trauma. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not negating anybody else's experiences, but when I push back on people that say that quite often, like, what does your trauma look like exactly? You know what I'm saying? And I think sometimes the things that they either don't answer the question or abuse. You know, you hear trauma or abusive relationships. And I'm like, what does that look like exactly? Like, were you abused as a child and you haven't gotten over it? And then I think, when do we move past the trauma? You touched on a good point, because everybody is talking about trauma. And I think it kind of loses power when you overuse the word. What do you think?
Well, I looked into your platform and I saw videos where you spoke about the relationship with your dad, and I thought that those were really good videos. Even the way you talk about how you are processing the disconnect with your son. I just want to start by saying, I just think it's commendable that you're online talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
And trying to give other parents hope that are going through what you're going through. When at the end of the day, I know you just tried to be the best mom you could, like my mom did. Like every mother really, when you think about it, if they not like, like on drugs or
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
they're trying. They
Yeah.
just don't know everything,
Yeah, we don't.
And I wanted to say that first before
Thank
I
you.
answered the question.
Do you feel like the shift that's happening between adult children and their parents, do you feel like it's coming from a place of that adult child feeling like they're more entitled to hold their parents accountable, but at the same time, they're not being accountable?
Well, I think that has something to do with it, but I also think the biggest influence is just the projection of what you think a parent adult child relationship is supposed to be. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Movies are the biggest influence, and you typically see people who make all these trauma filled movies, and it's really no healthy ending ever.
Mm.
So then young people see that and then they start kind of wearing that, like, oh, that happened to me. So this is how I'm supposed to turn out. Like you'll hear people, and I'm going to speak on the LGBTQ community. They'll say that they've been assaulted or molested, and they'll say, this is why I'm gay.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that people don't realize you're being influenced by everything you see, everything you hear.
Mm-hmm.
So when you grow up with one parent in the house, the world has conditioned us to hate the parent that's not there, or
Or
be
hate the one
hard
that
on the
is there.
yeah, I was gonna say be harder on the parent that is there. Blame the parent that's there for the parent that's not there. You see it in the movies,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I think that trauma is one thing, but at some point you have to stop thinking like a child. You have to be an independent thinker. And a lot of adult children like myself, we don't know how to do that because we stopped growing when we started being so angry. You can't
Mm.
grow when you're angry. So if you started hating your parents at 13, 14 years old and you still talking about the same stuff, you stop growing then.
Wow, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nothing can happen through an angry vessel but anger.
that's so true. And for me, I get a lot of people be like, "Oh, you're not healed," and I'm like, I couldn't be more healed, because I don't hold my parents responsible for who they were as individuals, and I think that's a lot of the problem as well. And I think a lot of these adult kids or teenagers or whomever, they're holding their parents hostage to their imperfections. So I want to unpack this even further, because so many, I believe, on both sides, and I speak from the parent side because I feel like the kids are doing all the talking. And that's why I have so many parents in my comments like, thank you for being our voice, because they're suffering in silence. Because one, you don't want to be judged as a parent. You feel alone, because I felt very alone when I was dealing with all the things that I was dealing with my younger son. And he and his brother are raised in the same home, same morals, same values, in the suburbs, both have a good life. And not only just providing them with the tangible things, I provided them with love and support of their dreams and whatever they wanted to do. And the younger one is still angry. And that's why I say you raised a good point. He's still that little boy that was upset because his parents got divorced years ago. And he never looks at the fact that the relationship between his dad and I was very toxic. And I tried to hold on to that relationship as well, because I wanted that family unit environment, but it was toxic. So I had to make a conscious decision, but he's not looking at it in that manner. So again, let's unpack it a little bit further. So what was your relationship with your mom?
Well, I have a really nice mom. She's
Okay.
a really nice person overall. She's very energetic. She's really giving, and she's always been that way. I've never seen my mom smoke or drink or do anything
Same.
as I would classify immoral. And there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing to people who smoke or drink. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
telling you about my mom.
Exactly.
She's an educated woman, the first woman in my family to graduate from college with several degrees. And just a little bit about her, but a little bit about our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We was close.
Mm-hmm.
We are close.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, we talk every day. We hold each other accountable and stuff like that. When I was coming up as a kid, I always wanted to be around my mom because it really seemed like she was the only one who had something going for herself,
Mm.
especially based off of the environment that I come from and that she also came from. Many people don't escape that environment,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't say that that's a physical escape. That's a mental and emotional
Very
escape.
true. Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in Woodlawn, that's in Birmingham, Alabama, and I love where I'm from.
Okay.
But just to be totally honest, it wasn't the healthiest environment to be in. That's
Yeah.
nobody's fault. That's just the environment.
Right. Yeah.
So
Why were you angry with your mom? Like before you got
yeah.
healed and before you became into this spiritual awakening, why did you have anger towards your mom growing up?
Well, my mom had to work a lot.
Mm.
And at times I felt angry because my mom was a single mother, so it wasn't a man around to pick up the slack. So the
Mm-hmm.
slack kind of fell on me.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Wow.
I would babysit, and I knew how to do a lot of adult things as a
Mm-hmm.
kid. And I was angry because, and this is in hindsight and me not knowing that at the time, but a lot of times I felt like I didn't have any friends.
Mm-hmm.
I always was a lot more mature than my immediate peer group. So I always felt like an outcast, like an outsider. But people liked me, but I felt no connection like friends.
Mm.
And then you have the, adults projecting on me,
Mm-hmm.
telling me that my mom is trying to live her life through me. You know what I
Mm.
mean? All of that
Wow.
stuff, people will plant seeds. And if my mama dropped us off at our grandmama house and she say she going to work, somebody been and told us that ain't what she doing. But she the only one who got a steady job around here, so she got to be doing something.
Right.
But that's not what you thinking as a kid.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't really want to get dropped off nowhere, but that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And so the people who she was dropping us off with never should have said weird stuff to us.
That's true. That's
And
true.
so my anger wasn't even necessarily stemmed from something that she did. It was
Mm-hmm.
more so of just being planted in the wrong places in
Yeah.
very instrumental times of my life. And as a young girl growing up, a young guy as well, teenagers, you're going through puberty. You have those emotional changes and stuff like that, because that's really when you start being sick in the
That's
head.
very true.
Like end of middle school, beginning of high
So
school,
true.
but God allowed me to always see my mom in a positive light. She's a very light teacher and very respected, and she was also my volleyball coach. So it was, when I look back at it, it's almost as if people were saying weird things to me, but
Mm.
God was still allowing me to see something different. But I'm still too immature to know even how to express any of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the anger really, really turned up when I was 17.
Really. What happened?
Because I tore my ACL, MCL, lateral meniscus. I was a really good athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mom wasn't at the game.
Mm.
She was on her way to the game. And before she made it there, I had tore my ACL and everything. I was being heavily recruited, and my life changed that night.
Yeah, I can see that.
And she wasn't there. I don't know if the anger was because she wasn't there, because I always knew she was coming.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been that somebody may have said something. She made it, of course. I had started to think that, sports was my way out.
Mm-hmm.
Never in a million years did I think I would get hurt. I
Mm-hmm.
never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always, took care of myself. I worked hard. I never cheated the system. And then I got hurt. And I truly think at that time when I got hurt, the enemy, I was at my lowest.
Oh yeah.
And so the enemy, he doesn't discriminate against kids. He's waiting on the opportunity to really take over the vessel. And so I was so angry at my mom. And then, when I was trying to heal and everything, this woman, this is still the same single parent I've always had. So nothing has changed, promise. She still got to go out and do what she got to do. She's teaching and then she's coaching after school. That's all day. You know what I mean? So I started to feel like, oh, she ain't there for me. And to a certain extent, she probably could have did better. At the same time, she's not a single parent of one. She's a single parent of 4.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a lot.
And that's why you have to start trying to empathize with their parents, because it's not just you.
Yeah, I think you raised a good point with that part, the empathy part, and that's the part that I see in a lot of the responses and the comments from the adult children that get very upset and their feathers get very ruffled with what I'm saying, is I don't see any empathy. I don't see any grace. And that empathy and grace is what we have shown you. Your mom being late, and I'm not trying to make an excuse because I know that was hurtful for you, and rightfully so, because I probably would have been disappointed as well. But I don't think our children think that your mom may have had to be working late. She couldn't get off in time. Anything could have been pausing her from getting to you faster than she typically was. And I think that's the part for me that I feel like there's such a disconnect, because our children don't think about the fact that, especially as single moms, and sometimes you can be single even when you're married, you're in constant survival mode as a single mother. Your mother had 4, I had 2. I was a mom at 17, so I was a child myself. But you're constantly in survival mode. You're constantly being overstimulated. You're constantly trying to figure out how to make ends meet, make sure that your children don't miss anything. Just so many things. Those dynamics that we deal with from that perspective, there's so much on us at all times. Could we handle things better? Absolutely. But I think the fact that I see such a lack of empathy, grace, and to be honest, I just see a lack of care for what a mother has gone through or done as a mom to make sure that their kids were good.
Yeah.
So let's move forward a little bit. Of course, I'm sure you've seen it just as much as I've seen it, this no contact trend, where children are becoming estranged from their parents for whatever their reasoning may be. What do you think the main reason some of these adult children are going no contact with their parents and becoming estranged? Do you think it's truly about this toxic and trauma-filled parenting? Do you feel like it's a generational gap where parents and kids don't know how to communicate anymore? Like, what do you think is driving this? I have my thoughts, but I want to hear what you think is driving this whole no contact phenomena I'm seeing.
Yes, I just think it comes from knowing what type of pain you can inflict on your parent if you do that. I remember when I stopped talking to my mom completely, I was very mean to her too. And at one point, and it was because I knew that would hurt her. Just to be totally honest with you, people who are acting angry and they're doing strange things, they're really blinded. That's not like whatever your son doing, that's not him. That is a spirit in him.
I agree.
So when I was doing what I was doing, that stuff felt normal to me. Like, okay, I ain't gonna talk to her. Okay, I ain't got nothing to do with her. Same with my dad. I ain't got nothing to do with him. That's what you say. And you say it because you know that that's going to hurt your mom or your dad. The enemy knows that. He knows that if he could plant that seed and make you feel like, I'm going to show my parents better than I could tell them. Yeah. Of course that's going to hurt your parents.
Yeah.
So you do it because you want to inflict hurt, because you feel like somebody done purposely hurt you. So you saying, well, I'm going to purposely hurt you. And I think that's the main reason for it.
Yeah.
Just wanting to hurt people.
Yeah. I agree. I remember, as a matter of fact, my youngest son a couple of weeks ago, like I said, I haven't spoken to him in over a year now by my choice, but he sent me a message, and he got into a very bad accident 2 years ago. He almost lost his life. And he said the only reason why I was coming to the hospital every day was because I was praying for him to die so I could collect the insurance check. And that was probably, he said some really low, nasty things to me. But knowing what I went through during that time, it was traumatic for me. Not only that, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer while he was in the hospital. So I was literally having procedures, and my husband trying to force me to stay home, but trying to get out to the hospital to make sure he was okay. And if I wasn't at the hospital, I was getting all these calls from the doctors telling me all this bad news every single day. And that's a lot of trauma. I still have anxiety from it today. But to hear your child say the only reason why you came to the hospital to check on them was to see them die so you can collect an insurance check, that was an all-time low for me. And then some of the things that I'm also seeing, Promise, is a lot of the adult kids are saying, well, parents need to be accountable. What is it that, because I see this quite a bit, what is it exactly that they are expecting parents to be accountable for? Because half the time we don't even remember half the shit we've done because we were just trying to make it through every single day. Because I hear it all the time. Parents need to be accountable for what exactly? Like, what do you guys need from us or need us to be accountable for?
Well, I was going to ask you, like, accountable for what? You know what I mean? I was going to ask you that question, but let's I'm not ready to answer that one. I don't
Okay.
really know if I have anything for that. I just know that it's easy to say those things to your parents. It's easy to try to manipulate your parents into thinking that they owe you an explanation, or they owe you your parents don't owe you anything. I remember when I wanted my mom to tell me information about certain situations that I felt like I was entitled to that information. But that was her life, her story. And if she don't want to tell it, she don't have to tell it. And so I could feel at that time maybe me wanting to tell her, you got to be accountable for your choices and what you did, or what you did for us to get here.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, what did she do?
Right.
If your parents are not doing anything immoral to you,
Yeah.
and promoting anything immoral, then you just really sick. You just sick in the head. You want something, or you want something to be easy, or you want something to go your way. That's why I speak against gentle parenting, because that's what's wrong right now. A lot of kids are used to getting their way. My mom used to whoop me. I feared my mom's position until I got old enough to think that I didn't have to. And the only reason I thought that way for that season was because of the other influences in my life. And those influences were like her friends and family.
Wow.
And so for me, I started to feel rebellious towards my mom, family members saying strange things about her to her kids. And then I'm still seeing my mama pour from an empty cup. When y'all need money, when y'all need something, y'all calling my mama. And so I started to feel angry, because I'm like, mama, we ain't got this because you keep giving this away. Not knowing that I also should probably say, because such and such said this or said that or did this or did that. And that's where, as a kid, you really don't know how to communicate this information. Because so any little thing can get into your child's head to make you think ill about you, about the parent. And that's just part of life. But like I said, the adult child who feels so much anger, so much hurt or whatever, they gotta just get past that childlike mind, that thinking. You gotta get past thinking like a child and acting like a child. You're just not a kid anymore. And if you're not staying with your parents and you're not depending on them for anything, you should really, it's a wide open slate, wide open door for y'all to restore the relationship. So being accountable, that's just something that people say to make you feel like you've done something wrong, or
Yeah.
to manipulate you.
It is. It's manipulation and it's gaslighting, right? It's to make you second guess who you really showed up as to people. I'm sure your mom has cried many nights without you guys even knowing that she's doing her best. And it's a very painful thing when you really show up for people. It's not reciprocated, or the fact that they would be interjecting in the relationship between her children and herself by planting these negative seeds. And that's called parental interference as well. And it's a form of abuse too, when you think about it. So another thing that I hear a lot is everybody is calling their parents narcissists. I think it's a word that gets thrown around way too often. It's overused because there are narcissists that are really in this world, and they're very dangerous people. And to label a mother as a narcissist is crazy to me. Again, I'm not overlooking the fact that it is possible based on the definition of what a narcissist really is. But I also find it difficult to believe that all moms are narcissists. And I'm seeing this word being tossed around quite a bit. In my opinion, it's overused.
Well, what is a narcissist?
So a narcissist, by definition, it could be a person that is very manipulative. And I know some moms can be. I know some parents can be very manipulative. They never take responsibility for their own actions. They love bomb you sometimes, and they come in one way and then they change that personality. They want control of the dynamic of the relationship at all times. They're never going to take responsibility for what they've done wrong. They're always going to gaslight you to make you second guess who you are, how you've shown up, or something that you've done. For example, your boyfriend cheats. You catch him cheating. He somehow blames you for the reason why he cheated and convinces you that you're the person that's guilty and forced him to cheat. That's a form of narcissism. And
Okay, thank you. I hear the word a lot, but I've never used it. Maybe I was personally called a narcissistic person once, but I knew exactly what I was dealing with when I was called that. Typically, people who are saying another person is narcissistic is narcissistic.
And that's exactly what I said.
Yeah, because when you use words like manipulative, when you manipulate someone, you're persuading them to think a certain way or to do something. That's parenting, though. The word being manipulative is just used the light is like a dark light over that word. But parenting is to persuade your child to be the best versions of themselves, however you see fit. Control, that's parenting. Children should not have freedom to choose. I could not choose things for myself. And I appreciate my mama for that. When I said I didn't want to do something, she said, let's go, we're going to do it. And everything that my mom made me do, I hate to shed a harsh light over the word control as well, because it's not really a harsh word. Children should not have all the freedom that they have. They shouldn't. And hopefully people don't misconstrue where I'm going with this.
They will.
I'm just saying, take responsibility. Responsibility for what? Trying to keep a roof over your head and food in your belly?
Right.
So, and I know it's bad parents out there. I've seen some pretty bad parents, but at the same time, when you become an adult, your life is your life now. So I've maybe heard my siblings use the term narcissistic towards my mom, and it would always be followed up with, well, I'm this way because of her. No, you're that way because of you. And it's so easy to blame someone that you're supposed to love because they're the closest. You got to blame somebody.
And I think a lot of times you're right. The parent gets blamed for anything that your child may have failed at or missed the mark.
Yeah, and I mean, I did it. I just didn't use that term though, but people would tell me, your mama trying to control you, your mama trying to live her life through you. So when you're planting that type of seed on an individual where that was really not happening in my life. My mom allowed me. Now, when I say she didn't allow me to choose things, I don't want that to be taken in the wrong way, because my mom is a free spirit, so she always allowed me to express myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always wore really different hair, and my style was always different. I'm exactly how I've always been right now today.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been confident in myself because she allowed me to be different.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to life choices, like, I did not want to play softball and she made me play softball. I did not want to play volleyball and she made me play volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that she made, decisions that she made on my behalf, because I wasn't mature enough to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean by choices.
How do you
She
feel about
chose.
that? Because some people, based on some of the things that I'm seeing in response to some of my content, when I ask parents, like, why do you feel like your child went no contact with you? Or what do you think your child is asking you to be accountable for? And some of them simply just did not know. And then some of the things I heard, well, I gave them chores and they said, oh, I made them a servant. Or some of the
What?
things that I've seen,
That's
it's
crazy.
so crazy. One lady said that her daughter said, "You're the reason why I'm fat, because you didn't make me eat seafood when I was growing up, and now I love seafood with butter." And I'm just like, are y'all being for real? Because there's no way that these are some of the reasons. Or, you set rules and that was abusive. And I'm just like, wow, is this what we have become? Is this what we have become with gentle parenting, like you said, which I totally am opposed to? Because what I feel like is happening, like I said earlier, the hierarchy is gone. So now adult and teenage children, they feel like they're on the same level of their parents because parents want a gentle parent, or they want to be best friends, or you think because your child wants you to come and do the latest TikTok dance with you, that makes you besties. But then when they go out in the world and there's an expectation of that hierarchy to a child, to an adult, they don't have that because they feel like they're on the same level as.
Yeah.
Another thing I've heard quite often is kids don't ask to be here, when biologically we all fight really hard to be here. And I hear that quite a bit. Like, nobody asked to be, I didn't ask to be here. And I think it's a stupid thing to say, because if you didn't, whether you asked to be here or not, you are here. So what are you going to choose to do with your life now that you're here? Or are you just going to continue to tell your parents, well, I didn't ask to be here? What's your thoughts on that?
You know, I probably said that more than once. I can't really pinpoint how many times I said it. I've heard people say it. And I remember one time I told my mama that she should have aborted me because I didn't ask to be here.
Yeah.
And the only reason you would say something like that is because you hate yourself. See, I hated
Mhm.
myself when I said stuff like that.
Wow. Mhm.
And so you don't want to accept that you hate yourself. So you project onto your parents, onto your grandparents. It's a lot of grandparents that are raising kids that are not even theirs. And they're going through hell doing it
Mhm.
because that kid hates themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a true thing. Children really don't love themselves. And
Wow.
when you don't have self love, everything around you is going to feel it.
That is so
That's
true.
the only reason I said things like that to my mom, to my parents, because I hated myself. Why did
Mhm.
I hate myself? Sick.
Mhm.
When your brain is sick,
Hmm.
when you have committed to listening to the enemy, or that voice is normalized,
Mm.
now you start saying that you're depressed and you have anxiety and you have all these other things that now exist and that are amplified. Yeah, it's just like a domino effect.
Wow.
So people who saying they didn't ask to be here, Jesus did not ask to die on the cross.
Yeah.
It's just, this is your life.
Yeah.
This is your deck of cards, or your hand that you was dealt. And life is about, what are you going to do with what you have? What are
Right.
you going to make out of what you have?
That's true.
You know. And I just think we're living in a very terrible time. And if more people don't start encouraging healing and self accountability,
Yeah.
instead of telling someone else to be accountable, you be accountable.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as an adult kid, you can't go backwards.
No. You can't. You have to move forward. And that's always my point. Like, okay, everybody's talking about they're in therapy. Everybody's talking about your healing. But in my comments, I can see that's not the case just by your projection and the amount of vitriol that comes along with some of the comments, because that doesn't represent healing. And so I always say therapy isn't working if this is how you're still showing up and you're still blaming someone and you're still expecting someone to be accountable.
These folks not in no therapy. It costs too much for them to be in therapy. They not in therapy. They're lying. I didn't mean to cut you off. They
Why do
not
you
spending their
say
money
that?
on therapy
Why do you say that? I think
because
social
angry
media has
people
become their therapy.
don't think they need help.
Ooh,
So they're lying. People who say they in therapy, show me the receipts.
that's a
A
good one.
therapy session costs about $100 per session.
Yeah.
That's an investment.
Yeah.
So you really got to be committed to wanting to be a better individual.
Yeah.
It's easy to say you going somewhere and then therapy is something to keep private.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to say that's what you're doing and to look up some self-help videos and use some of the words that they would use in therapy. But
Yeah.
you ain't spending no money on therapy. Half of these folks don't even have a job.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Half of these adult kids don't even have a job talking about therapy.
And
They
they be
lying.
living in their parents' house. Like, you have the audacity to treat your
Yeah.
parents like trash, and you living in their house. Like, you have got so many women say, well, my adult children are 35 and 40 and they still live with me and they don't talk to me or they're abusive. And I'm like, what? In your house? That is not acceptable. I always advocate for parents standing on business as it relates to being respected and not abused. So majority of my platform is about that. And it's also to be like, okay, you want your parents to bend down, take the blame, all of these other type of things. And like I said, it's about immaturity. It's about control, like you stated as well, because you want to control your parent. Not only that, you know, your mother typically loves you unconditionally. Like, mothers have that agape love. That's why you tolerate so much from your child and you still love them and you still want the best for them. But it's overwhelmingly obvious, like I said earlier, that some of these kids don't have love or even consideration for their parents.
Agape love is something that has to be taught and gifted to you. So you don't just grow up with agape love. You grow up just loving people in a common way. Agape love is the way God loves us.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way you can really come into contact with what agape love is number one, you have to be born again. So a lot of adult kids, they really need to give their life to Christ. And I could tell you for a fact that works. But
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on. Children really don't know what's going on. Now, that's no shot at a parent. But, you know, when you grow up, you got to come into the truth. I was at home one day, and this is when I really started seeking God, because I was like, man, I'm unhappy. I'm dark. I was just unhappy. You know what I mean? And I really said, okay, I need to give God a try. I had stopped going to church. My mama every weekend, she always invite me to church. I stopped. This is a person who was brought up in the church, going to church consistently, and I got to a point where I just stopped. You know, and a lot of times when you're in darkness, that's the first place you stray away from. Anything that's positive, anything that's church related. So I'm sorry, I got all off. Well, not really all off, but
because that was going to lead me into my next question. Like, what was that turning point? Was it when you made that conscious decision that you were ready to change your relationship with the Most High and you were ready to walk into spirituality and religion on your own? Was that the turning point for you?
I was just tired of being unhappy. I mean, I had a good job. I was making good money. You know, nice car. My living situation was good. I was good. I had everything I guess I wanted, but I was so empty. I mean, I don't even know how to describe the internal feeling I felt waking up, going to a job that I didn't necessarily like, but I was just naturally good at it.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm getting off work on Fridays, me and my homegirl meeting up for happy hour. Done had one too much to drink, one too many times, and I knew God had got me home. I ain't no heavy drinker. What are you doing, Promise?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes you just gotta look at yourself like, girl, what you doing? And then I'm telling you, my name saved me a lot because I thought about all types of stuff. I thought to do all types of stuff.
But your name held you captive.
My name really, really saved my life. And
Wow.
all the time I think about, man, my mama, she named me that. And she's saying that is because of the promise that God made to Jacob about Joseph. That's the Bible story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, and she always used to have us watching an animated movie with the coat of many colors. That was my favorite movie. I said, man, I believe my mama named me this because of a promise that God made to her.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at the lineup of my mother's children, I was born first for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to start acting like the firstborn promise?
Mm-hmm.
Because you could be the reason that everybody else acting sick in the head. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm explaining this and I'm kind of like being over dramatic about how I was because I just think I don't want to really sugarcoat it because somebody else might really be sick in the head or they may have been really bad kids. Overall, I was a good kid.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I didn't get in trouble in school and stuff like that. But internally, I was dark.
Mm.
And so I kind of knew how to dress it up, going out, never embarrassing my mama and stuff like that. But then internally, I was just angry.
Mm.
So I think that was God really shielding me from kind of going off the deep end and
Mm-hmm.
not feeling any type of conviction towards anything or about anything. To answer your question, I really wanted to end my life.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I was actually sitting in this exact seat
Mm-hmm.
and I had my gun with me and I was just thinking about it.
Wow.
And I was like, something, it ain't that bad. Let me try one more thing before I do this.
That would have devastated your mother.
Yeah, but people do that to hurt people. People will kill themselves to hurt people.
Hey, it's a selfish act.
Yeah, but that wasn't nobody but the enemy making me think about ending my life. All I had to do was do some root work, some shadow work on the inside, and the enemy is really there to rob
You of your
you
purpose.
of your purpose. And I wish more people would think about it like this. All it takes is one person in your family
Mm-hmm.
or close friend group to really position themselves with God, and it'll also be a domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
But if no one ever makes that sacrifice to die to their flesh, die to their way of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
die to their environment,
Mm-hmm.
and say, man, I'm gonna trust God completely. And when you think about it, when I thought about it, my mama, like I said, spiritual, believes in Jesus. But in my opinion, nope, I'm not gonna say in my opinion. When you have children, I'm not calling us baggage, but it's baggage. It's a load that you're carrying with
Oh
you
yeah, for sure.
while you're trying to follow
Oh,
Christ.
for sure. And I think that people negate the fact that parents feel like no matter what they're going through, no matter what they're dealing with themselves, you have to put yourself on the back burner when you have a child. At least good mothers do. And what
Yeah.
happens is the burden always falls on us to fix things we didn't break. Even with the abandonment from the other parent, we're always going to try to overcompensate for that parent that walked away from their kid.
So I had been really praying about 10 years, like, God, help me with this relationship with my mom. And I kept seeing her and also my dad, I kept seeing her as the person that wasn't trying to make it right.
That.
I don't know why I kept seeing it like that. And
Mhm.
then she finally agreed to therapy. Now, I'm going to be honest now. A lot of parents, y'all
I
really do need to go
definitely
to
go to
therapy.
therapy.
And the reason I'm saying it is because a lot of times the generation before
Oh
us,
God, yeah.
they hung up on God is my therapist, and he is.
Yeah, yeah,
But he got to use some individuals to help you get there.
yeah. And that's why therapists are there. The right therapist, because I think you can go to therapy, but you have to tell the whole story. And I
You
think
got to,
a lot of people don't, especially these children that are now estranged from their parents or calling their parents narcissists or telling them they need to be accountable and I need to set boundaries and all these different things. And my whole thing is when you are going to therapy, therapy is for your healing.
yeah.
So I'm not going to therapy to force therapy on my husband, my sons, I encourage them to do what they need to do for their own healing and their own well-being. But therapy is for me. I'm not holding anybody responsible for my healing outside of me going to therapy. But then when I do go to therapy, I also held to tell the whole truth. I can't just go in and paint this picture like I'm this perfect person and I haven't done anything wrong and this person did all these things to me. No, you have to tell the whole story. Because I think, and I even posted about this, sometimes I think people go to therapy or they go to coaching or individuals because they want to be heard and not healed.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, for sure.
You want to be heard and not healed. And yes, I know you need to be heard, but in order for you to be healed, you have to tell the entire story. And you can't just tell the story from the perspective of being the victim all the time. You even have to be the villain in that story sometimes. And I think that's where there's this misplacement and where therapy becomes weaponized against other individuals sometimes.
Well, therapy will never work if that's your first stop.
Mm-hmm.
Your first stop has to be God,
Mm.
has to be Jesus.
Okay.
Because the only way you're able to tell the truth is if you know truth.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know Jesus, if you don't know God, and I don't care what you believe in, you better believe in something.
Yeah.
But I follow Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only person I promote. That's the only spirit I promote. And I listen, I spent years on antidepressants, okay? Therapy, all of that. But the one thing that all I had to do was just come back to Jesus. A lot of us are just the prodigal children.
Mm.
And some cases are different and worse than others.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really start learning about God, you will learn that you have to, it says, the truth will set you free.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to therapy, you ain't went to God first, and he ain't started pruning you and making you see yourself, because God don't make you see other folks.
Mm-hmm.
He make you see you.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy make you see other folks.
This is true. This is true.
Because when you really want something to work, you'll really just get, and that I'm telling you what I did. You gotta really just be ready for what God finna show you about you.
Yeah.
Okay, promise you tripping.
Yeah.
Promise you trying to control all of these situations. Promise you got a chip on your shoulder. Promise you think you better than this person. You think you better than your mama now.
Mm.
You know, promise, remember when she did this? What do you think that was? You know, he'll slowly start allowing you to see backwards,
Mm-hmm.
hindsight. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't have hindsight if you don't know Jesus.
This is true. This is true. And I think, that's a good point too. And we're going to close out because this is an amazing conversation and I could go on and on about it. But I think what you said is when you do that self-reflection and that self-evaluation, and then you can see things hindsight 2020, you won't just apologize or ask for forgiveness from your perspective, but it comes with a change behavior, right? It comes with a change behavior because people can apologize all they want to, but if the behavior remains the same, that apology absolutely means nothing. And that's why my son and I are at this crossroads because he has apologized after he said all these nasty, despicable things, but the behavior is still consistent. So I'm like, until
Dang.
you show me that,
Yeah.
because he'll call and cry and manipulate. And when he doesn't, now he can't do that anymore. The manipulation doesn't tug at my heartstrings anymore. It doesn't work anymore. Then he reverts back to that same person and starts saying all those belittling and nasty and all that thing. So I'm like, oh, okay. So this is who
Yeah.
I'm accustomed to. And this is who I knew you were going to be when you didn't get your way. Promise. This has been such a powerful an amazing conversation and a much needed conversation. I hope that we can bridge the gap between a millennial, Gen Z, or whomever adult child and a parent. And my hope is always for children to see parents' perspective, and parents already kind of see your perspective, even when we're in those moments of just fight or flight. When we sit back and have those quiet moments like, yeah, I could have handled that differently. But I just think there has to be so much grace that's not extended towards parents that I want to see as we all move forward because it's too much happening in the world right now. It is too much happening. January has already been a long year. And I just think that we all need to make sure that we're working to foster good relationships. But as I always stated, I will always advocate for parents to not tolerate any disrespect or any abuse, even from a child, because I believe you teach people how to treat you. So this has been such a powerful and much needed conversation. Thank you so much for coming on and agreeing. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media and how they can follow you in your content.
Yeah, you can find me at Millennial underscore everywhere.
Okay.
Or just type in Promise Israel everywhere. And that's how you can find me. And can I say one more thing before we finish?
Absolutely.
I want to say this. When I was in therapy with my mom, I felt like it wasn't working.
Mm.
And then I never forget, I woke up and I was ready to throw in the towel. So I felt in my spirit that I was just going to write her a letter and just let her know, hey, this ain't working out and I don't want to bring this into a new year. It was coming up on a new year. And I was writing a letter and I got to like page 4, almost page 5, and I started crying.
Mm.
All I said, well, I'm going to just
Yeah.
write out how I feel about her, how I felt about her. And as I was writing, the things that I was writing were totally opposite of what I was thinking.
Mm.
So I don't know if God was writing and allowing me to really see the type of mom that I had and that I have, because I felt so stupid.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because like I said, y'all parents don't get it all right, but y'all don't get it all wrong.
Yeah.
And everything I was writing was good. And I started crying about on page 4. And then in my spirit, it said, call your mama. And typically me and my mama play phone tag like before we actually got over this hump.
Mm-hmm.
And I called and she answered. And the first thing I said was, because I was crying, and I was like, hey, I said it just like this. I've been looking at this thing all wrong.
Wow.
And typically, my mama is kind of tending to something, or, if I really don't have a full attention, I have full attention this day. But at this time of my journey with God, I was focused on being obedient to what I felt in my gut. And that's why I say it's a journey.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to let your guard down. I had to really say, well, Mom, I've been looking at this all wrong.
Mm.
So the letter I thought I was writing for her, it was for me. It felt like a weight was lifted off of me that day. We talked, and I said, well, Mama, we ain't even got to talk about nothing in the past. And she did apologize for decisions
Of
that she
course.
had made. That she said, I really didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that's just what, I ain't had that
We
many
did our
options at that
best.
time.
We did our best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, that was just big for me. Maybe
Yeah.
adult children need to write a letter
Yeah.
and actually like write about your parents, write about things you like about your parents, and start filling your heart up with like good things.
Yeah.
And it'll overshadow the bad things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think they just
I
have
just
to have an open heart and an open mind, just like you did, because I've seen parents said, "Oh, I received this 5-page letter from my daughter telling me all the wrong things that I've done." You know what I'm saying? So that's beautiful from your perspective.
you gotta want that relationship so bad. I wanted that relationship so bad.
Mm.
And not only with my mom, with my dad, because all I would think about is, man, if my mama passed away today, I'm gonna be over in the casket crying, hurt, like the typical person who say, I wish my mama was
After.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
like you don't want to be nobody living another 40 years wishing
That's true.
you could just make it right. Just, man, you really just gotta grow up. You grown, put your big girl panties on, big boy boxes on, and make that thing right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For real,
But that's
I want
true.
everybody to feel what I feel towards my parents,
Yeah.
because I know that restoring that relationship, it lifted a weight off my parents. I
Mm-hmm.
felt them
Yeah.
like, dang, okay, wow, this is one less thing that they don't have to worry about.
Exactly, because it breaks our heart. It's not easy not to have a good relationship with their child.
Yeah,
It's not an easy thing at all. It's not easy for me to be estranged. I've become numb to it, but it's
yeah,
not easy being estranged from my younger son. And I have an older son too. And like I said, they're raised in the same home, the same way. If anyone should be angry, it should be the oldest one, because I was 17 when I had him. So we grew up together. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? But he's like, "Mom, you did your best. You did more than your best. And anything that we have done have been our choices, and you are not responsible for us making dumb decisions." And I'm like, "Okay, at least one of them. A win is a win." You know what I'm saying? So this This conversation has been amazing, and I knew it would be. And not just because you align somewhat with what I'm saying as far as the parents are concerned, but just to hear that perspective. And I wish and I hope that, again, a parent can have some healing from this, and also an adult child could take some things away from this if they're going to listen to it. And I mean, not just hear it, but really listen with their heart and comprehend it from a heart perspective and not just a head perspective. So
Yeah, I agree. Let's do a part 2 at some
yeah, I
point.
think we need to do a part 2.
We'll lock in a date. More conversations like this need to be had in order for our desires to really be
I
fulfilled.
totally
We want to
agree.
see restoration in relationships. We got to keep talking about it.
Yep, I totally agree. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Hey,
thank you,
thank you for
thank
having
you.
me.
To all my listeners, thank you for riding with me this past year. Here's to more unfiltered and authentic conversations about the taboo topics around parenting and life.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you again, and happy anniversary.
Thank you, Promise. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so blessed to have a community where I can show up as my most authentic self because I don't know what else to be. Don't forget to favorite the show, leave a review, and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platforms to stay up to date on new episodes. Subscribe to my newsletter at MumsTrueTea.com. Follow us on all socials at MumsTrueTea, and be sure to share and stay tuned for more thought-provoking topics and real talk on Mom's True Tea with Kendall Lachey. Until next time, remember, you need you just as much as anyone else, so stop playing about you, okay? Bye.